Welcome, everybody, to the Healing Place podcast. I'm your host, Teri Wellbrock, and a happy heart here today because I am here with Ben Lytle, and he is a self-made serial entrepreneur and CEO, known for being ahead of the curve. He has launched 7 successful companies to date, creating billions in market value. And so he is here to talk about, well, gosh, he's got a book that has come out, The Potentialist. So we're going to talk about that, and we're going to talk about so much more. We had a great conversation beforehand. So welcome, Ben.
Thank you, Teri. I'm happy to be here.
Yeah, I was so excited to have you come join me on the show and talk about again, we'll go into all the stuff we just talked about, but let's talk a little bit about, just introduce yourself to folks, and really what was the inspiration for this book?
Yeah, it's actually a book series, and it started about 8, 9 years ago. I mean, the idea of actually writing something, I really had never planned to do that. It wasn't on my list of things to do in my life. But I've been a futurist and a student of human potential since my teens and early 20s. It's just something that always fascinated me. And they go together because being a futurist, and that includes science fiction, is really an exploration of the potential of the human race. But then my interest in individual potential, how we each reach our potential, started when I was age 20. So anyway, I've always had that. It's the lens through which the lens of potential is how I've looked at life and how I've looked at my career, how I've looked at my management and leadership style. I look to try to see the potential in others they couldn't see themselves and get them to see it. And in my entrepreneurial activities, it's the same thing. I look at a business or an idea and say, what could happen with this? What could we make of it? And so that's my orientation. Well, and that because of that, I track all I came up through the tech route. So I started as a programmer when I was 16, which was a day or two ago, and and came up as a chief information officer, and then a chief operating officer, and then a CEO. So I've always followed technology. And then I've always followed, but I was also in healthcare mostly, so I track healthcare technology as well, and scientific technology. About 10 years ago, I began to realize how people did not see what was coming, how dramatically the world is going to change in just the next few decades. It's doing it right now. We're already in it. And that included my own family, and they're very bright. My children are very successful. My sons are entrepreneurs, and I have these wonderful grandchildren that are just brilliant and wonderful and beautiful. Of course, they're my grandchildren. What else would I say?
Right, exactly.
But they are, but I thought, okay, well, if they don't, what about the general public? Because they listen to my stuff all the time. And I realized that, so I started writing a white paper for my family, and then that white paper became 3 white papers, and then I realized, oh, okay, it's going to have to be written down, properly edited, so that it's easily readable. And I hired an editor, and that editor, who came out of the publishing field, really encouraged me to make it public, because they said, this is different. What you're saying is different, because a lot of people write about the future, but they don't say, what should we do? Because every big change in history has required a human adaptation, and the adaptation this time is going to be greater than any in the past, because this is going to be the period of greatest change in the past than we've ever had. So anyway, that's the story of how I got here. And so the first book came out 2 years ago. They're all titled The Potentialist. And I am not the potentialist. I'm a potentialist. I hope everyone becomes a potentialist. But the first one is The Potentialist, Your Life your future in the new reality of the next 30 years. And then the one that just came out in October is The Potentialist, The Pursuit of Wisdom. And the reason it's the pursuit of wisdom is because I believe as the human race, we have achieved what we set out to do 600-700 years ago, which was to pack more information and knowledge into our heads. That's now at our fingertips. Now, the next challenge for human beings is to learn in a democratized society where we have many, many, many choices and where institutions are not going to be able to guide us as well, how to make those decisions wisely. And so that's why the pursuit of wisdom, because wisdom is all about making good decisions in your life.
Oh my gosh, I love it so much. I'm not kidding. I literally had a conversation with God yesterday. It was like, there are so many options here for me to
Right.
choose, for this particular path. And
Right.
I was like, how, like, it's almost like overwhelmed that you're like,
It
so you
is.
wonder how many people get stuck in the muck because it's too much to like, do I go this way? Do I go this
That's
way?
exactly what's happening. That's exactly, Teri, what happens. And I'm not the first person to think and write about this. My favorite futurist was a guy named Alvin Toffler, who wrote a wonderful 3 seminal books on the future, and they were all about accelerating change, and with accelerating change, increasing complexity of life. So, we're being prepared right now. The technology is taking us there. We've seen it happen in retail. We've seen it happen in entertainment, streaming entertainment, in music. We have many, many more choices, and we're being taken into a world where everything is going to be bespoke. My clothes, my car, everything. But every one of those requires decisions, a lot more decisions. And so, for example, most of us now have this overwhelming problem of keeping up with passwords, right? Or the overwhelming choices. And we often have to do more things ourselves. Like, used to, you could call a travel agent up, I want to go here, do this and this. Well, it's hard to find travel agents anymore because their industry's basically been wiped out by choice and direct to consumer actions. So we have to learn to live in a faster paced life and in a life where we're going to have many, many more choices. And I guide people on how to do that, and that we can all do that. Wisdom is not some magical quality. It's something available to every one of us if you simply put a little bit of effort in. And that's what this book is all about. The second book, The Pursuit of Wisdom.
Interesting. Now, is it a science-based pursuit or is it intuition? Is it a combination? Is it?
Great question. No, it is science-based. So what I tried to do, because I've trained and studied and done advanced work in psychology, and and I had a consulting psychologist, a brilliant psychotherapist, as an advisor on this book, and I'm thankful that a number of psychologists and psychoanalysts have now recommended my book. So I think you can trust that what the book is I tried to capture the best of modern psychology, as best of what we know today, and classical philosophy, because some of this obviously has to go into philosophy as well, but not philosophy it's very pragmatic. It's looking back in history and saying, how did we get here? And what brought us here? And what can we learn from what got us here, as well as looking forward to where we're going?
Yeah, powerful. My degree's in psychology, so that's, like my
Okay,
brain
mine too. So
immediately.
yeah, right. And I did graduate work, and you will see a little a leaning towards Jungian, because I studied for 11 years with a Jungian, and so I tend to lean towards more Jung's orientation. But it matches what I think any therapist would. I don't think any therapist would find anything in there that they would disagree with. At least that was my goal, and that was the goal of my consulting psychologist, is that most would say, yeah, this is good, solid stuff.
Yeah. And I just have to tell you, that a lot of my audience, me included, a lot of us are trauma survivors. And so we tend to lean a lot on our faith. We're starting, there's so many that lean into the intuitive sides and that, and I've heard a lot of my guests and a lot of other people talk in that arena about, humanity is elevating, like we're
Right.
elevating. And I almost hear
Absolutely.
that's what you're saying as well, but from just a different side of the same coin.
Yeah, exactly. I totally agree. I mean, if you look back in time and look to where we've come, there is no question that we're elevating. When people say, "Oh, the world's such a terrible place," I say, "Wait a minute. A little over 100 years ago, people in the United States, and as well as all over the world, went to public executions, and they took their children. We would no more do that than anything." And even as recent as World War II, we celebrated, literally celebrated, headlines celebrating when we mass bombed civilian areas. We would, again, today we get upset if there's an accidental bombing of a civilian area. So we've come a long way, and we are headed to something even better. I believe we are entering into a period, and I believe, and I can make the case that we are headed into an age of the expanding of human potential. And it's coming about because of which all periods of great change in history, more recently the Renaissance, the Enlightenment, three prior industrial revolutions, we tend to think of them as just technology based. Something new came about, steam, electricity, whatever. But it's really not. It's much more than that. It's the convergence of changes in the world and change technology. And when those collide, and I list them in my book and in my speeches, which ones are the most important to think about, they accelerate change and they take us forward. And so we are in a period where we're going to be able to do things in the next few years that we could never, ever have imagined. And
That's so
even today,
exciting.
even today, it's almost impossible to imagine being able to collectively have to think what you want a computer to do and do it. But we're already doing it. We're already doing it. And that, think about how powerful that is. To have quantum computing where we can solve problems impossible to even consider solving in the past, like doing simulations of the human body, or so that you don't necessarily have to have a decade of drug trials. You can simulate those trials. Like what would space travel really have the effect on human bodies? Things like that. What is really going on with the environment? Instead of a million arguments about it between different people, now we can get some real data-driven predictions, and that's the kind of stuff we're looking at. Now there'll be problems. That's the way life works. There will be new problems. It always happens. We make great strides and we face new problems. And the reason is because problems are like nature's quality control system. They say, you haven't quite got it right yet, boys, girls, you got to keep working on it. So we should always expect adversity, but expect that adversity is trying to teach us something. And it's not there to punish us. It's not there because things are going terribly wrong. It's just, which is what most people think. But it's just trying to teach us something to prepare us for the next step.
Yes, I've talked about it since COVID first hit the scene.
Mhm.
And people were saying, oh, it's so horrible, horrible, horrible. And yes, it was horrible in many ways, but I kept saying, oh, this is a catalyst to teach us how strong we are, how resilient we are, how much, like I kept saying, I'm seeing more people starting to, again, coming back to elevate, but elevate and more light than darkness that came out of that in just my observations.
It's so true, Teri. And again, we always forget there's always lessons in history. The Great Plague, the Black Plague, killed almost 50% of Europe. They didn't have great population counts, and almost 50% in 4 years.
Wow.
And then it went on for hundreds of years after that. The plague didn't just end. It went on for hundreds of years before they ever discovered what the cause was. And so you think of that, that's about as most horrible thing I can imagine. But out of that, it was one of the major causes of the Renaissance, because people began to start living more. They craved beauty. They craved some of the things out of the Greek culture, especially, and the Roman culture, but especially the Greek culture that they could honor. And also, out of that came the first, for the very first time, labor. Working people had a voice because there weren't enough workers, and suddenly they could begin to demand things that they could never do before from the kings and the church. And so out of that came some very good things. And so we had a relatively, and I hate to say that because so many people died and suffered, but comparatively, we came through it quicker. We came through it much less dramatic than it could have been. And so we have to say, okay, it was a horrible thing, but it taught us a lot. And boy, did it accelerate a lot of things, a lot of technologies, and a lot of way we look at life. Working from home, for example, is probably, one of the biggest things that came out of that I don't think will ever go back. That genie's out of the bottle.
Right. Yes, 100%. I agree. So back to your books, are they guides? Are they step-by-step guides for
Yeah,
folks?
yeah. What I tried to do in this second book, in each book, they're very much intended to give you something tangible you can do. I'm a pragmatist. I'm not interested in philosophizing if I can't offer something. So the first book, Your Future in the New Reality of the Next 30 Years, and I keep trying to get people to think of a new reality. It's not the old reality you grew up in. It's the new reality. Uh, and so the first 88 pages, I describe what that's going to be. And then I lay out 7 things that have always been good things to do. But if you'll do these 7 things, you'll be much better prepared for this new reality. The second book goes to the optimum adaptation. What is it we really, really need to do? We have in this age we're going into, for the first time in history, I think, we have the opportunity to truly democratize human potential. And from that, I mean, instead of making it available to just a few people, making it available to many people and ultimately everyone. And so this second book is really a handbook. It's a guidebook for how do you achieve your potential, become wise, and make the best possible decisions throughout your life. That's what it's there for. And it has a 140-page practices manual that is available from it as well.
Wonderful. Now, can anybody do this? Is it, I know a lot of people, like I said, a lot of people who tune in here, about half my audience is those who are like social workers and doctors that help people along their healing journey. But then another half of my audience is people like me that went through a lot of trauma. And, some of them are still trying to claw their way out of that.
Right.
Is this something that they can utilize in their lives as well?
Absolutely, because first of all, even though trauma, and as you know, many people have trauma, many more than ever gets reported in the statistics of one form or another. Trauma is a stimulus. We just like we said about COVID and the Great Plague. It may be it's on the macro level. That is social trauma. We have individual trauma. In both cases, there is something in there good for us. There is a growth path out of it for us. And so this book, my book particularly, helps you really understand your own psychology. So what I tried to do is explain it in a way that anybody can understand it. I only have one gift in life. It sure wasn't good looks. It sure wasn't anything special beyond that. But my one gift in life is explaining complex subjects simply. And so this is a guide anybody can follow. And the only thing keeping us from our potential, becoming wise, and making the best decisions is believing that we can do it. It's true in the micro for each of us. It's true in the macro. You know, when I speak to audiences, I'll often say, I'll bet not a one of you in here objects to society becoming wiser, because wisdom is the ultimate human achievement. It's the pinnacle. And they go, yeah, yeah, yeah. And I go, okay, well, what you're doubting is it possible? I just don't see how that can be done. Well, stop for a minute. Again, look back in history. It was only a few hundred years ago that the prevailing wisdom of the elite, at that point, the clergy and the king, the royalty, was that why people can't be trusted with the ownership of land. They wouldn't know how to be a good steward. They're just, fools. They don't know how to take. Well, of course, I think we've done okay. People have done fine owning land. Then it was literacy. Why would they want to read and write? We tell them everything they need to know. And it goes on that. Self-rule, are you kidding? It was only, 250, 300 years ago that the whole concept of living without a king and royalty to tell you what to do was considered insanity. But yet, I think we've done just fine, and it's vibrant. And so that's the same thing with wisdom. There's nothing stopping us from being wise, a wiser people, a wiser society. And imagine if the world only got 10% wiser, 15%, 20%. It will happen. It absolutely will happen. It will start with, and you're a person out there working on this. There's so many other people like us trying to point people forward to being elevated, be prepared. And so I'm just trying to paint, here's what I think the ultimate is that everybody on this planet can achieve if they want to, is their own potential and being wise. Because there's nothing stopping you but you. And so that's why I'm such a strong believer in that.
Amen and hallelujah. I love you just said there's nothing stopping you but you. Exactly. Yes.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
I'm trying to say, here's how you get beyond you. Because
And
it's
I have
not
to tell
you.
you, I
Yeah, yeah.
have to say that when you were talking about, you said something about your good looks. When we first like Zoom popped on and I saw you, I was like, oh my gosh, I love this man's smile because your eyes like radiate. You just have, I love your eyes and your smile. And so I think for whatever reason, eyes and smiles make people beautiful to me. So I think you're beautiful. And I just wanted to say
Well,
that. So
thank you very much. And you know what, Teri, but it's an example of when you're looking at a guy living at his potential. I am giving that is what's driven me I said I started very young. I have a motto that I use for myself, and I do it every morning. I check myself against it every night, and I'd encourage your listeners to do it. It's very simple. I will do my best to be my best and leave the world and the people I meet along the way a little better than I found them. That's my test. That's my challenge to myself every day. That's my challenge when I go to bed at night. How did I do? And if you live by that, you will find your potential. I guarantee you.
oh, I love that. I love it so much. It kind of reminds me. So I grew up very Catholic. My mom
Mhm.
loved, I was named Maria Teresa. And so Saint Teresa is my middle name. And so my mom loved, like she just absolutely loved Saint Teresa. But her quote was, do little things with great love. And so that's
Absolutely.
what I grew up being told is like, do little things with great love. And that kind of reminds me of similar in the
Yeah,
same line of what.
when I meet young people who want to change the world, I say, always remember what Mother Teresa says. You want to take care of, you want to change the world, go home, take care of your family.
Oh, yeah.
Starts at home. Starts at home, starts with you. You do yourself, you start working towards your potential, you'll be able to help the world reach its. But you can't go the other way. You can't change the world and then somewhere in there, I'll become my best. It doesn't work that way.
Yeah, beautiful. Well, I just have so enjoyed this conversation. I wish we could sit here and, do a whole series.
Yeah,
But
you're fun to be with, Teri.
do what? I'm sorry.
I said, you're fun to be with.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Well, I certainly want to give you these last few minutes before we close up to leave people with any words of wisdom, any final thoughts that you would like to share.
Yeah, I think believe in yourself and remember when that voice comes in and says, "Oh, you can't do this." Oh, that's not you. That is not you. That's your ego. That's your shadow. That is not you. The real you is the one listening to these guys. And you have to learn to put them in context. Don't listen to them. You've got a whole nother set of voices that want to talk to you about all you can do. And you know that side of yourself. Talk to those guys. Don't try to repress the ego. Just say, thank you very much. Appreciate your opinion, but I don't believe it. I'm doing this. And so reach for your best in yourself. And I think my book can help you, but there's lots of other sources if you don't like mine. So main thing is reach for it.
Wonderful. Thank you. So how do folks connect with you? How do they find your books?
Yeah, so the book is on Amazon and barnesandnoble.com and my publisher Amplify. And I've got a website, and the website's an e-learning site. So you'll see lots of video out there, and there'll be more and more free things you can do, how to parent a potentialist, this guide to becoming to your pursuing your wisdom. All of that's available, and it's potentialistfuture.com. No spaces or anything, just potentialistfuture.com, and everything out there is free. So this isn't a money-making venture. It's a venture of the heart.
Oh, I love it. That's why I call this my soul work.
Yep.
I've never monetized the podcast, and it's just, I just feel called to put this out for free for everyone to listen in and find you and healing resources. So yeah.
That's wonderful. Wonderful. Well, I'm honored to be on your show.
Oh, thank you. Well, it's been a blessing to have you here. Thank you so much.
You bet.
All right. Well, everyone, thanks for joining us today on the Healing Place podcast. And remember, until next time, be gentle with yourself. Thanks. Bye-bye. Hey, everybody. Teri Wellbrock here. Just wanted to thank you again for being a part of this healing space and my hashtag Hope for Healing journey. Thank you for sharing, liking, inviting others to join, listening in. You've really helped this show blossom. It has now been downloaded in 136 countries and is in the top 2% globally out of 3.2 million shows, which is just amazing. And it's all because of you and your tuning in and inviting others and sharing and liking and loving. And your reviews on Apple really help too. My goal is to hit 100 5-star reviews by the end of the year, and I am closing in on that. So if you are listening in on Apple or Apple Podcasts, please go and rate the show and leave a review if you absolutely love it. And I would be most appreciative. Also, if you would like to receive my monthly Hope for Healing newsletter, please be sure to go to teriwellbrock.com. It's TERI, just one R, WELLBROCK.com. And I have a gift to send you for signing up for that monthly Hope for Healing newsletter. Plus, there are many other resources listed on that page, including a resource library. All right. Thanks. Bye-bye.